Hey guys, it's Coach Jennifer from X10 Archery, and tonight we are going to talk about journaling. So, your journal is your best friend that you never knew you needed. Your journal is your constant companion throughout all of your training. And it's a really important tool in our toolbox that is extraordinarily underutilized. And so today we're going to talk about how to take that tool out of our toolbox, use it appropriately, and get to that next level of success that we all want to attain. So it's the beginning of a new season. It's outdoor season. Yay! I love outdoor season. It's my favorite. I love the travel. I love being outside. I love seeing my archery friends. I love everything about outdoor season. Okay, so it's social distancing outdoor season this year, so it's a little bit weird, but we're still training. So that means that we should be journaling. So every new season, including this season, we do some things at the beginning, right? We set our goals. We make our training schedule. Eventually, we are going to make a travel schedule. We're going to commit to our training program for this season, which means we're going to commit to journaling, right? And usually the first couple weeks, it goes really well. We're at the range early, we're stretching, we're warming up, we're running our mental management program, we're really excited, we're actually using our journal. And then after a couple weeks, things kind of slip. And then our best friend journal is sitting in our bow bag or sitting in our hard case from the last trip we took, or just maybe lonely on our kitchen counter because we forgot to get journal out and to record our training. So this year, we really are going to commit and we're going to use our journals. And let's talk about what it is that belongs in our journals and how it can be formatted to help you be successful. So I like to have a journal that has a few different sections in it because I like to separate different information. In the front, I like to have my competition schedule. I like to have my training schedule, my travel schedule. Did I book my flights for Arizona? Do I have a hotel room? Who's going to be my roommate? Just sort of scheduling things that help keep me organized and sane. Because especially during a regular USAT season, travel is really stressful and there's a lot of moving pieces. And if you have a place where you're tracking all of them, it just makes your life better. And really, that's a good place to start. Organization makes your life better. Now, in the second part of my journal, I'm going to keep notes from every time I meet with my coach because I want to make sure I'm getting the most out of the time that I'm spending with my coach. And so I'm going to write about any changes that we've made to my shot process, any conversations we've had about my mental management program. And I want to make sure that I write them down very specifically with a lot of detail because after I leave my lesson, I might not go back to the range for 2 or 3 days or maybe even 4, depending on how crazy my week is. And I want to make sure that I'm implementing that change in exactly the way my coach and I worked on it together during my lesson. But it's hard to do that unless you've written it down. So also in my coaching section, I'm going to write down what my coach wants me to be working on for that week. If there's a specific skill we're focusing on, or a specific set of skills that my coach wants me to pay attention to and really work between now and the next time I see them. And then I'm also going to write down, did my coach give me any homework? Now, if you've worked with me or Coach Linda or Coach John, you have definitely gotten homework. We love to give homework. But if you didn't write your homework down, how are you going to remember what you were supposed to do? And are you going to do it? Probably not. And so you've lost some of the value of the time that you've spent with your coach because you didn't do your homework. And so you're not getting the full time, the full experience of working with them. So, making sure that you make notes after your lesson, and sometimes even during, because like if something's really important, I might write it down during my lesson. That's really important. And that way, we know that we are working on all of the right skills to cement that muscle memory, to lay down that myelin, and to get us to where our coach wants us to be for the next time that we see them. So in this third part of my journal is where I keep my training logs. I also keep my competition logs in this part of my journal. And for this, I'm going to write things like, where am I shooting? Am I indoor? Am I outdoor? What distance am I shooting? What's my arrow count today? How am I feeling? Am I feeling great? Am I excited? You know, just a general feeling, because how you feel on any given day impacts how you shoot. So then I'm going to choose a goal for that day. So let's say I look at my lesson from this past week and I see that my coach wants me to be working on my bow hand, that he or she wants me to make sure that my hand is really seated well into my grip for each and every shot. And so I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to have an excellent bow hand for 50% of my shots. And so I'm really going to pay attention to my bow hand to make sure that I'm doing it exactly the way my coach and I talked about it. And I'm going to keep track. You know, I'm going to click on an arrow counter. I'm going to make a little, tick mark in my journal. And then I'm going to count them at the end of my training to see, did I reach my goal? If I did, great. Next time I choose that as my goal, I'm going to increase that percentage. If I choose something else next time I train, then I'm going to choose a new goal and a very specific measure to determine whether or not I was successful in completing that goal. So we're also going to write about how our shots were feeling. Did everything feel great? Did something feel kind of off? Because if we're shooting and we're training and I'm focusing on my bow hand, but I'm still, paying attention to the rest of my shot. If something doesn't feel right, I want to make sure to make note of what was going on. Like, man, on my last 20 shots, I just really was having a problem getting through my clicker. I don't know what was going on. You want to talk to your coach about that because you want to troubleshoot what happened on those last 20 shots. Did your clicker move? Were you letting your bow shoulder creep up? Were you tired? Was it hot? Were you dehydrated? What was going on? Because we want to make sure that we take care of concerns like that before we get to competitions. Also, you want to make note of if there was anything like funky with your bow, like, maybe it didn't sound right, or there's a rattle. Just, if there's something weird about your bow. Because if there's something going on with our bow, then we want to make sure that we're addressing that with our coach or with our bow tech as well, because that's extremely important. Now, on competition days, I'm going to do a lot of these same things where I note the weather, I note the event, I note how many arrows we're shooting, how I'm feeling. Am I excited? Am I nervous? Am I tired? Am I dehydrated? Am I shooting on a bail with someone that I really don't enjoy shooting with? Like, is that making me anxious? I want to write about how I'm feeling, because all those things go into how we perform as athletes. So during a competition day, I'm going to write in my journal how my shots felt. Did my shots feel really great? And did they feel like what my score looked like? Because if I'm shooting 6 really awesome shots, but I have a low score at the bail, that's something that I need to address immediately when I get home. And also, it helps us have a window into what you look like and feel like as a competition archer versus an archer in training. Because we only get so many chances each season to really compete under that stress. And tiny problems can be magnified under stress, which is why we want to be journaling, so that we can identify tiny problems and take care of them before we get to competitions. So I also like to keep track of my scores when I shoot scores for practice, or if I'm shooting matches with a friend, because it just kind of gives me an idea of how I'm doing scoring wise, because we have to score. It's part of our sport, and if you're only scoring at competition, you're not sure if you're performing better at competition or if you're performing better in practice. And so it's really important to score. And it's important to make notes while you're scoring. Because again, if you shot 6 solid shots and you get to the bail and it looks like buckshot, there might be something going on that you need to troubleshoot with your coach. That's really important. It's also really good to score, especially on a bad day or a rainy day or on a windy day, so that you see the differences in your scores under different conditions. Another cool thing about scoring is that it shows you how far you've come. My first outdoor score was, something along the lines of, 75. Like, I didn't even hit the bail the majority of the time. Whereas my, personal best is 311. So looking at those scores, you can see the ebb and the flow of how you're scoring. And you can look back in your journal to see what was going on at that time and figuring out what's working and what's not working. So another thing that I think is really important to have in your journal is all of the information about your bow. Because your bow is a part of your sport. So we have to make sure that it is just right. Because, let's say your bow sounds weird one day. the first thing you're going to do is pull out your bow square and measure your tillers and your brace height and make sure that everything's good. But if you don't know those measurements, you're kind of out of luck, right? So I like to have my top and bottom tiller. I like to have my brace height. I like to know the number of turns out the limb bolts are. I like to know the measurement from the tip of my pressure button to the bushing that holds it in against the riser. And if I have a biter plunger, there's little numbers on there. I like to write down what number pressure setting it's on. All of this is really important information because when you travel, the bow that you took apart in Texas is going to be just slightly different than the one you put together when you get to Chula Vista. It's just how it works. Another thing that I like to keep track of in my journal with regards to my bow are my sight marks. And I like to keep my sight marks for different distances. This helps me for when I'm shooting a competition that has multiple distances. It also helps me for, if I'm shooting and all of a sudden I'm shooting really high, I'm like, what is going on? I can look at my sight and make sure that my sight is in the right place. Just really simple, but important. So, your journal, it's got a lot of uses. And it's a really important tool. So let's make sure we keep this tool just like we would a set of wrenches. We want to keep this tool close at hand so that we use it. Because your journal, it's not just a collection of scores and notes. It's also your archery autobiography. It shows you where you've started, how far you've come, and where you want to go. And your journal is your roadmap on how you get there. So I hope that this season you will commit to using your journal every time you train, every time you compete, whether you're shooting your bow, working with your stretch band, or your shot trainer, doing visualization exercises. Every time we do any training, we should be picking up our good friend journal and making sure that we write about it. So I hope this has helped to demystify the process of journaling. And remember, journals are not one size fits all. So what works for me, it might not work for you. You have to figure it out. Figure out what works for you. And remember to do it. So thanks for joining me tonight to talk about journaling. And let us know if you're enjoying our content. And if there's something that you want us to make a video about, if you have questions, please let us know, because we want to make sure that we're putting out the information that you need. And the best way for us to do that is for you to tell us what you'd like to see. So have a great night, and I will see you next time.